From the Yale Bowl to Shea Stadium to the Meadowlands and now MetLife Stadium, the Jets and Giants have had some legendary matchups both against each other and against other franchises around the NFL. But out of all the Jets and Giants legends to strap up the helmet and lace up the cleats, who makes our New York football Mount Postmore? Here are our writers with their lists.
Well, obviously, Joe Namath's a no-brainer, right? What he did, the AFL only Jets championship, Super Bowl III, that Lombardi trophy stands alone inside the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center. The Jets' #1 fan, even today. Broadway Joe, Broadway Joe has to be on that list for the historical meaning that he brought to the NFL and to the Jets. And of course, the other guy that has to be on is Lawrence Taylor. I mean, arguably the greatest defensive player in the NFL. I mean, some people argue Reggie White. I'm closer with Lawrence Taylor. I'll vote for Lawrence Taylor. 24/7, just a tornado around that corner. And opposing coaches devised game plans around stopping him. And opposing quarterbacks were terrified of him. And then I'm going to go with Wellington Mara, who meant so much to the league because of the revenue sharing that he believed in with the smaller market clubs, and the patriarch of the NFL, Wellington Mara. I have never met anyone who didn't respect Wellington Mara. And of course, his legacy is being carried on by his son, John, who deserves a lot better than what he's been getting recently from the Giants. And then George Young, who helped resurrect the Giants at a time when the Mara family, Wellington and Tim Mara, were feuding, and Pete Rozelle turned to George Young, tabbed George Young to solve the problem with the New York Giants, and he sure did, drafting Phil Simms in '79, keeping Bill Parcells at a time when he considered firing him for Howard Schnellenberger after Parcells went 3-12-1 in 1983. And of course, drafting Lawrence Taylor with the second overall pick in 1981 after George Rogers. So George Young, I think, belongs on that list.
It's a tough list to get on, right? You got the Giants and the Jets. Lawrence Taylor, greatest defensive player in NFL history. He belongs on the list. Joe Namath from the Jets. Joe Cool, Broadway Joe. I mean, he was the coolest guy. He was a great quarterback. His numbers don't stack up now because it was a different era, but every young man of a certain age wanted to be Joe Namath growing up. I see people right now who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. When they see Joe Namath at events, they kind of melt and they become a 12-year-old again. Joe Namath, super cool. And, oh, by the way, engineered the greatest upset in Super Bowl history, Super Bowl III, beating the Colts and giving the American Football League credibility. Bill Parcells, he made the Giants list. He also made the New York list. Don't forget, he also coached the Jets and led them not to winning a Super Bowl, but led them out of the darkness into light. Very good coach for the Jets. So between his legacy with the Giants and Jets, he is a Mount Rushmore guy. And Eli Manning. Now, Eli Manning never played for the Jets, but he's Mr. Giant. 16 years for the Giants, 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, and he kind of transcends. He did not do it the way Joe Namath did it, but he did it with his own class, his own style, his own quiet humility, and he belongs on a New York football Mount Rushmore.
I voted for Lawrence Taylor, Joe Namath, Emlyn Tunnell, and Rosie Brown, and I know those last two are going to be the ones that raise eyebrows. So Emlyn Tunnell. I don't think people understand how good Emlyn Tunnell was. 79 interceptions in his career. So Revis had 29, I believe. So, and they didn't throw the ball that much in the 50s. So 79 interceptions is insane. When Vince Lombardi went to Green Bay, he brought Emlyn Tunnell with him. That was the player he brought from the Giants to Green Bay. He was all pro, I think, 8, 9 times. So his numbers are really remarkable when you look back. He's kind of a forgotten guy, so I wanted to give him a vote. I figured he wasn't going to make it on the list. But to me, the Giants have this history that people basically don't even know about from the early days and from the 50s and even going back you go back even further than that with Mel Hine. I did not see how Emlyn Tunnell play, but I wanted to vote for him. And Rosie Brown, offensive tackle, just a rock on the Giants in the 50s and 60s. I heard Wellington Mara speak about him and talk, I think, say about you really can't write the history of the Giants without Rosie Brown in it. So I went there. I mean, the Giants are an interesting team when you did this exercise and including them in the NFL part of it. Lawrence Taylor to me is a no-brainer. After Lawrence Taylor, it gets tricky. Where do you weigh the modern guys like Eli or Strahan, and then where do you weigh the really older historical guys that may have been forgotten? And in this project, for picking these guys, do you pick just based on accomplishments or do you pick on fame? So it's an interesting debate. And then Namath was my other one, which I spoke about before with the Jets. I think he's an obvious one for the NFL.
Well, my New York football, they're a little redundant because Namath has to be in there because he really was iconic, not only for the Jets, but he was iconic for the league. He led the Jets to that 69 Super Bowl victory, he had the famous guarantee poolside down in Miami before the game. He changed a lot about, the NFL, with the NFL and the AFL. It was a massive upset. The Jets were, I think, 17.5 point underdogs to the Colts in that game. So that was really one of the most iconic moments in the sport, let alone just New York football. I would put Parcells in there absolutely without question again because he's also a guy that coached both the Jets and Giants, and obviously, as we've referred to before, led the Giants to 2 Super Bowls. He led the Jets, to their AFC Championship game as well, and so that's one of only 3 AFC Championship games in team history. I'm not including the Super Bowl year. So Parcells to me was, again, as I think he's one of the greatest motivators I've ever seen in a coach in any sport that I've covered. I would throw Sims in there again. Again, we're a little bit of, we're redundant here, but, Sims, again, he led the Giants to 2 Super Bowls. Those are the glory years of the Giants. And again, I think a bit underappreciated. And Lawrence Taylor, I throw in there because of the fact that I think he's the greatest New York football player in history. And again, I think not even, he's top 3 in the league. And he revolutionized, defense. He struck fear in opposing offenses, and they could throw as many people on to block him, and he was going to get through them. So those are my 4.
All right, great list, fellas. But here are the 4 for our New York football Mount Postmore: Joe Namath, Lawrence Taylor, Eli Manning, and Bill Parcells. Come on, y'all. When you look up and look around MetLife Stadium, you see all of these names in the Jets and Giants Ring of Honor. But are there some guys you feel were left out and needed to be swapped in? We want to hear from what you guys think about the list and if we got it right. So comment below and subscribe to Post Sports Plus for full access to this series.